Hi, and welcome back to Hey Doc, What's Up? Today we're going to talk about heavy periods. Well, in med speak, heavy periods is called menorrhagia. You don't have to remember that. Just remember you have heavy periods, and your doctor will call it menorrhagia. But if you're unlucky enough to have a heavy period, what does that mean? Well, last time we talked about what is normal. And normal is considered about every 3 to 4 hours you are changing your method of supply and collection of your menstrual flow. But what is heavy? Anything under that 3 to 4 hours, but certainly if you are overflowing supplies when you have a normal timing of when your flow needs a supply chain change. But most of the time, that's going to be considered menorrhagia or heavy bleeding if you're changing your supplies more than every half an hour, or even if it's a half hour to 45 minutes. That means you may be using 2 forms of collection. You may be using 2 tampons. You may be using an overnight pad. There are women who will come in and say, Doc, I'm using a Super Plus tampon, a heavy overnight pad with wings, and I put a towel on with a plastic sheet because I sleep so heavily I would overflow all of that and end up messing and soiling my sheets. So that's too heavy of a flow. That's putting you at risk for anemia, number 1. But number 2, why? Why is this happening? That is not a normal amount of flow to be having with your cycle. So what's going on? Well, usually, and number 1, is that it's hormone imbalance. And hormone imbalance means too much building of a lining with too little helping you get rid of it. So it just starts to slough, and as it sloughs, it's actually coming out at a faster rate than you can collect it. So why would it do that? Well, estrogen builds things. So too much estradiol versus progesterone is going to build a heavy, thick, fastly dumped lining. It may also lead to things like polyps, which now have no muscle around that lining to control and stop the bleeding coming from the muscle. It may be coming from muscle that has broken off and formed a circular whorl, they call it WHORL, and that circular whorl of muscle becomes non-functional, and it's called a fibroid. So fibroids, or muscle knots in a uterus, change how the blood flow up to the surface of a uterus works, and that can prevent a uterus from clamping down and stopping blood flow as well. So those are some of the major reasons, but the biggest, most important reason is hormone imbalance. So how do you know if you have hormone imbalance? It's easy to check your levels. It's called ask your doctor for blood levels of your estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, and that's total and free. But knowing when in your cycle to draw it. Do you draw it right before your period? Bad time to check. Halfway in between is when you start making progesterone. So bad time to check. Right after you finish your bleed, bad time to check. You're just starting all that. So when should you get your hormone levels checked? A week before you anticipate your cycle. So if you have a 28-day cycle, 21 days into your cycle, or 7 days before you anticipate your bleed, is the key time you're making your highest estradiol, your highest progesterone. You may find that your levels are balanced and where they should be. You may find imbalance. And if you are estrogen dominant, that's a signal. That's why you may be having heavy, clotty, crampier periods, and that's going to be easy to fix. It's called balancing your hormones. So stay tuned next time for Hey Doc, What's Up?